So our webinar today is on Wisdom of Elders, a teaching story. And I would like to introduce our presenter, Henrietta Mann. She is our World Variety Elder. Dr. Henrietta Mann has been a crucial part in developing World Variety family programs, such as Families of Tradition, Mothers of Tradition, Fathers of Tradition, Sons and Daughters of Traditions. And her sharings of teachings of the cycle of life have provided the framework for these trainings. And after the years as professor and advocate for Native sovereignty and wellness, Dr. Henrietta Mann came out of her retirement to start at the Cheyenne Arapaho Tribal Community College. She also does ceremonies and songs. So welcome, Henrietta, and we're so grateful for you to be here today.
Now, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Especially to White Bison and to Mr. Don Coyas, who has done so much work in helping our communities recover and be who we are as this land's first people. And those of you that keep the White Bison offices going and functioning smoothly. But of course, we have to also acknowledge the people that make World Variety the organization that it is, many of whom are, I assume, listening into this program, and some that attend the World Variety events and the conventions that we sponsor. I was last at, I believe it was Portland or someplace, several years back and attended the conference there. But I am very pleased today to share with you a teaching story from the Tzitzis, the Cheyenne people. There are two geographic groups of us. One, the Northern Cheyenne, who live in the state of Montana, and I lived in Montana for some 40 years with them. And many people take me to be a Northern Cheyenne, which is okay. But there's also the Southern Cheyenne geographic designation in Oklahoma. And this is the people with whom I am enrolled as a citizen of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes. I have walked long on this road. I will be 88 years old this year, this May. And sometimes I wonder about my mind, and I hope it just keeps functioning, because there is so much that each of us have yet to do in ensuring the health and the well-variety of our respective communities. I have always been in awe of the work that Mr. Coyas and the staff have done in terms of helping people just to be their better selves. And that has been a long journey, I know. Today, I would like to share with you one of our stories. Our stories of history. They're teaching stories. They can be stories that make you laugh. They can be very serious when we go into the sacred realm to talk about how our life came to be with its Council of 44 Peace Chiefs, warrior societies, and our lawways, established by a very good man who came to the Cheyenne people thousands of years ago and established our way of life. Today, I wish to share with you a story that is about 7 brothers. There are other stories like 7 brothers, but this one I'm going to tell you is called Possible Sack. Now, we as Tzitzis women always had our possible sacks that we carried with us. They were our suitcases, our huge purses, and you'd never know what you would find in a possible sack. So hence the name. You could find anything possible in a possible sack. In this case, it tells about this young woman and 7 brothers. Our stories always begin with the term Evavit. Evavit means in the past of long ago, in much the same way that the non-Indians in telling their stories say once upon a time, but ours is Evavit, in the past of long ago. So there is this story of the Cheyenne people who were encamped in a very large camp area. It was a very large circle. You know, we always camp in a circle, just as we do at our ceremonies today, with the opening toward the east, so that we can greet the morning sun when it comes to begin another day with us. And then there is that opening in our circle as well. The Cheyenne circle is not closed. There is a slight opening toward the east for the spirit of people when they come to live here on this beautiful land of ours, comes in, do their circular journey from infancy and childhood to being young people, to being elders, to being mature people, adults and elders. And we just advance through those 4 phases of life that each have a color of their own. And then when life is over and we have finished our walk here on earth, then we go back out that same opening that through which we entered, thus the tiny opening in our symbol of earth, this earth circle. And so once there was this great camp, a huge camp, and in this village was a girl. I'm sure there were many other girls, but we're going to tell the story, learn about this one girl. And she wanted to go to a certain place where she knew, she didn't know how she came to know, but she knew that there were 7 young men that lived in a certain place. There were 6 that were young men, and there was this little boy, they say about 10 years of age. And the youngest child among us as Cheyennes is generally called Moxois, is just that, the youngest child in the family. The girls are called Mokbutsa if they're the youngest in the family. But this story is primarily about Moxois and this girl who knew that there were these 7 brothers that lived far to the north of where this great Cheyenne camp was. And one day she sat and began making, and there are different stories. They say that she made a whole buckskin outfit for a man, from his shirt to his leggings to his moccasins to gauntlets, beautiful white, elaborately embroidered men's outfits. Some you see in dances today. And so, but she started making the clothing for them. Some say that she decorated a huge buffalo robe and made some moccasins for these men that she knew lived alone. There was no woman in their family. They had no mother. They had no sister. It was just these 7 brothers, 6 mature and 1 Moxois, the little boy. And so one day she started decorating these robes elaborately, beautifully. Sometimes she is called quill worker, but in this case she has a different name. And she made first one, and her mother was very curious about why she was making these ornate items for a man, because she knew that there was no young man around courting her daughter. And so she finished one, put it aside, and then started another, which really piqued the mother's imagination. And she finished a second one. Then she kept working and finished a third, a fourth, a fifth, and sixth mature men's outfits, buffalo robes and moccasins. And her mother was just curious, but never asked her daughter, "Why are you doing this? What is this for?" And finally, she started on her seventh robe. It had taken her a full year to make these clothes. And so she had a tiny one that she made, just as beautifully decorated as were the larger ones. And finally, she finished making them, and she hung them out on a line in much the same way that our grandmothers and mothers in times past used to hang their dry meat to dry. Well, she put this robe and things out to air. And then she changed her name, which is an unusual way of getting one's name. But she changed her name to Possible Sack. So this is a story of Possible Sack. And so she took these robes down from the line and folded them very properly and packed them away. And her mother watched as she was doing this and asked her, "Why do you put these robes away? Why do you not give them to someone?" And Possible Sack answered, "I want to go to the place we hear of, where those 7 young men are living. I have no relations here. I don't have any brothers. I don't have any sisters. And I want to have these young men for my brothers." Her mother thought for a while and then said, "Yes, you may go." Oh, in our stories, everything is possible. Possible Sack and her travel to go to where these young men live. She said, "I will go with you." And so she said, "Get your travois, harness it to a dog. You may take 2 dogs, upon which you put these travois, and you fasten these bundles of robes and moccasins." She said, "I'll go with you part of the way, but I will turn back." And so her daughter said to her, "When you come in sight of, or when we come in sight of this place where these young men live, we'll take the pack off your travois on this dog, and I will carry them and put them on your back." And so Possible Sack, they came close to their campsite. It was a huge teepee, so I am told, an ordinary dwelling, a huge teepee. She said, "In fact, roll this rope up." And at that time, we made our ropes from the hair of buffalo hair ropes. And she said, "And throw it on the travois and tell these dogs to return home." And so she went, left her mother there, and started on to where these young men left. And she walked all night. And just at daylight, she came to the place where these young men lived. She stopped. She took these sacks off these the travois and did as her mother said, took this rope, rolled it up, put it on the travois, and sent the dogs back home. And they knew how to go. But she and her mother had walked far to the north, and they started back running south, back to their home where Possible Sack's mother and father lived. And so she continued to walk and saw the young men come out of their lodge that morning. Saw 6 of them come out and carrying their bows and arrows with their robes tied up, and they started off to hunt buffalo. And so when she reached the lodge, she looked in, and there was only this little boy there. And she said to him, Moxoist. She knew his name. And when he saw her, he asked her, where are you going? And she said, I have come here to claim you as my little brother. And I also am going to claim your brothers as my brothers. She said, I am a lonely child in my family. I am the only child, and I want brothers. She said, and that is why I came here. She said, in my sack, I have a robe for you. And so Moses was so happy. He had never had anything that a woman had made for him. And Possible Sack said to him, I am very glad you want me as your sister. He said, and now she said, when your brothers come back, you go to meet them and tell them that a girl has come who wants to claim them as brothers. And tell your eldest brother that you want her for a sister. And tell them that she has a quilled buffalo robe and moccasins for each one of them. And Moses said, yes, I will tell them all. I will go to meet them when they come in with their buffalo meat. And so Possible Sack and her new little brother stayed in the lodge. And she unpacked her sacks and she put a robe and a pair of moccasins on each of their 6 beds. And finally, she called Moses, who would run to the door of the teepee and would look out to see if his brothers were coming with the usual childhood curiosity, but he didn't see them coming. And finally, he told her, it's about time for my brothers to come back. And they'll come in soon. And so 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 4 is a sacred number to most of us as American Indian tribes, and it's sacred to us as Cheyenne as well. Well, the 4th time that he went out to look, he saw them coming. And he went to his bed and he said, quick, give me my robe, give me my moccasins. He said, so that I may run to meet them. And so she took the robe and wrapped it around him and made him sit on his bed and put his moccasins on. He had never had anyone do that for him before. And he looked out and he says, oh, sister, said they are bringing in plenty of liver in the nose of a buffalo. I didn't know that was such a delicacy, but it must have been in times past. Said, we'll eat together, and I want you as a sister. When I meet them, I will tell them so. He said, and I know they all love me, and I am sure they will be willing to take you as a sister. So Moses started out with his beautifully quilled robe and his moccasins, and he kept looking at himself. He just had these beautiful quilled items. And finally, sometimes he would throw himself down on the ground, flat on his back, and stick his feet up in the air to look at those moccasins and just played. He was so happy. And he just lifted them above him as he lay on the ground to see these beautiful, elaborately decorated moccasins. And so the young men saw that, his brothers saw these moccasins, and they wondered where he got them. Well, where did these come from? When we left, he didn't have anything like that. They said, maybe a woman has come to our camp. They said to one another, maybe a woman has come to our camp and wants to marry one of us. Well, when Moxos had come very close to his brothers, they called out to him and said, Moxos, where did you get your new robe and your moccasins? And he said, he was out of breath by that time. He said, a girl who has come here who wants to be our sister. He was so excited and so happy. Said, and she told me to come and tell you this. And I told her that you all loved me and all would be willing to take her as a sister. Oh, then the oldest brother said, no, you cannot have her as my sister. Said, I have to marry that girl. He said, I have been going to see her for a long time. And I have been sticking close to the camp, where I hunt around the camp where she lives. And when Moxos heard that, he started crying. He dropped his robe, he threw himself on the ground, and he burst out crying and said, I told my sister that you would all be willing to do as I said. So his next eldest brother, the second one, said to him, oh, get up, don't cry, Moxos. Your brother is only teasing you. He is only joking. Wipe off your tears so that your sister will not know that you have been crying. And go down to the lodge and tell her that we are bringing in a lot of meat and to fix a place where we can hang it. So Moxos jumped up quickly, dried his tears, and he started to go back to the lodge. He ran there and he told his sister what to do, and they fixed a place where the meat was to be placed. And so then he ran back and told his brothers, it's all ready, it's all done. He said, she has taken care of his robe, and he said, and she has put it away. She said, telling me to take care of it and to save it. So these brothers went into their lodge, and they found that she had prepared a place for the meat, and she made ready some food and got some marrow from the bones, and they began to eat. Moxos was happy, and they hung up some of the ribs before the fire and they roasted them. And when they were roasted, they took them, cut them up, and had Moxos carry them around to serve his brothers, to feed them. And the next morning, the brothers went out again to hunt. And Possible Sack had in her possession some lodge skins, and she began to cut them into everyday moccasins. And so the next day she made the moccasins, and the men went out hunting again. And each day they went, they told Moxos, stay close to the camp. You must not leave our sister alone. And so they said, some young man might come along and try to carry her away. And if anyone should come, they tell Moxos, you must take your sharp arrows and shoot them. And his sister had spoken to him about this and had said, Moxos, it may be that someone will try to take me away from you. And she said, I have some porcupine quills that I have dyed red and yellow. He said, and if anyone takes me and you cannot find my trail, look for these red and yellow porcupine quills and you can follow me by them. And so Moxos always stayed close to the camp. He loved his sister and he wanted to protect her. But on the fourth day, when he went out hunting, some little birds, he wounded one and he followed it. And about the time he would nearly catch up with it, the bird would move some other place. And it kept pulling him further and further away from the lodge. And so, but then each time he was about to reach down to pick it up, it would get up and fly a little bit further away. And finally, he said, I'm not going to catch this bird. And he just left it. And he went back to their lodge. Well, when he was gone, a great buffalo bull, a big one, a huge one, a monster buffalo bull had come to the door of the lodge and spoke to Possible Sacks, saying her, come out. And when she heard him speak, she sprang to the back of the lodge where all the medicine bags of her brothers hung. And she looked at them and saw they were made from the skins of birds and animals that eat flesh. One was made from the skin of a coyote, another made from the skin of a raven, another a magpie, another a blackbird. All the birds and animals that eat flesh, the 6 brothers had as their medicine bags. And so Moxois had a little medicine bag. It was shaped like a quarter moon, and it was made from tanned buffalo hide. And in his possible sack, or his medicine sack, he had one little skin of a gopher skin. And so, and near this, there were arrows that he had made. One was made of cottonwood. One was made of large willow. Another one was made of small willow. And one was made from bullberry and one of cherry. And the first 3 had points on them, had arrowheads on them. But those of the bullberry and the cherry had no heads. In fact, Moxois had chewed the ends of them to find splendors. So they were going to be virtually useless. And so when Possible Sack, their sister, jumped to the back of the lodge, the bull called out to her again, this monster buffalo bull, asking her to come out. And he spoke 4 times. And the 4th time he said to her, if you do not come out, I will come in. Now, this lodge had been a very strong one. It was built of logs. It was like a Cheyenne war lodge, and they used it for a windbreak as well. Well, this girl thought that that buffalo bull certainly could not break into the lodge, and she said, you can come in. She invited him in. And so when he said that, he started in through the passage and got caught because it was so small. So he shook himself and these logs just fell apart on either side of him. And when he came to the door, he lowered his head and he raised it. And the logs flew in all directions. He was a monster bull. And when he stood in the door, he stopped and said, I suppose you have never heard of me before. He said, have you never heard of the double-teeth bull? We called him Histowanen. He had teeth, upper and lower, double rows of them. And so he said, take your robe and come with me. And once she saw how big he was and his monstrous teeth, she picked up her robe and at the same time her bundle of red and yellow quills. And she put them under her arm and went out of the lodge. And this Histowanen, as we call him in our language, the double-teeth buffalo bull, told her to walk fast. And he made her walk close to his head. And she was crying the whole time. She didn't want to leave her brothers and their safety and their love. And as she walked, she kept dropping these porcupine quills. And so they travel and they travel. And at last they came to a great herd of buffalo that were all lying down, a huge herd. And he said, now, he said, you will see your mother-in-law and she will come out to meet you. And before they reached this great herd of buffalo, they stopped. And all the bull's relations came to meet them. His mother came, his father came, his uncles, his aunts, his brothers-in-law, his sisters-in-law, and they all met her and they crowded around her. Well, they had crossed a river in their journey. But when Makasois, getting back to him, came back to their lodge, he found it was partly torn down. And all the beds with the robes and the moccasins saw them in the back of the lodge weren't just as they had left them. They were still there. But in the earth of the floor of the lodge, he could see the tracks of a huge buffalo bull. And when he saw that, he was so frightened and he began to cry. He ran about everywhere calling to his sister, but no one answered. And he cried and he called her again. And so he saw his brothers coming over the hill and he ran to meet them. And he said, and they saw him run in. They said, I wonder what our little brother is up to. And so I wonder if his sister has been taken away. You know, there are these scenes where you have feelings. And he said, I wonder if his sister, or our sister, has been taken away. And he reached them and he called out, my sister is gone. There is a great bull track in the lodge, and the tracks went off together. And one of his brothers said, this is terrible. That bull cannot be killed. We cannot do anything to hurt him. We can't kill him. They added, it's useless to take our meat to camp. And they just put it there where they were standing. There's no one to take care of it now and to take care of us. And so when they reached their lodge, they saw how it was torn down and what shambles it was. And they saw all the things in it, just as the girl had left them. And then they all began to cry. They mourned their sister because the bull that had captured her could not be killed. And so after they finished crying, they spoke together and they said, what can we do to get our sister back? The things that one does for one's siblings. You probably are reminded of that. How can we keep her from the power of this buffalo bull? And so they said, I know, we'll make 4 big corrals around their lodge. They said, we'll make these circles and one outside the other. 4 of them, outside one, a second one, a third one, a fourth one. And there was little Mopsos who would go and get the sand from an anthill. And he was straining it around in a circle like his big brothers were doing. And he brought this dirt from the anthill down. And it was inside the inner one, the smallest corral. And so the brothers wondered what he was doing. And so finally he said, I am going to get my sister. I will get her, even if the double-teethed bull takes her under the ground. I shall bring her back. And so they all got ready to go. They went, and the 4 elders, brothers, got their medicine bags made from the skin of a blackbird, a magpie, a raven, and a coyote. And Moxoy's got his little medicine bag too, the half moon one with the gopher skin in it. And we wonder, the gopher skin. And so they got ready to go, and Moxoy took the lead. He followed the trail of these red and yellow porcupine quills, and they traveled a long ways. They just kept walking and walking and walking. And so at last they reached the top of this high hill, and they saw on the other side of this broad river that the buffalo had crossed a great herd of buffalo. We call a herd Issawa. They saw this huge herd of Issawa. And in the center of this big herd was an open space. And they could see the great bull, and they could see the woman sitting by him. They sat on that hill, wondering what they were going to do. And they send the blackbird down to her with a message, but the buffalo bull suspected him, and he couldn't do anything. And then they said, and they sent the coyote, and he went around the herd of buffalo bull and came in, and he limped. And so this buffalo bull said to him, "You are here as a spy." He said, "You have come to tell Possible Sack something. Go away, dust." He said, "Or I shall look at you." Well, this buffalo bull was so powerful that if he just looked at you, you could fall dead. He could kill you just by a look from his eyes. And so the coyote turned and went back to the brothers and told them what he had been heard. And so next they sent the raven. One of the brothers sent the raven. He went around, he flew lower and lower. And then they said to him, "Raven, you are here to do something bad." And the raven went back over and told him, it said, "I could see the girl there, and she was leaning against her root digger. And I had a good look at her. I think she was asleep." So although he could not do anything to bring her back, he saw that she was in the middle of the herd of the buffalo and leaning against her root digger. And they sent a little yellow bird this time to see if they could talk to her. And finally, he did slip he crawled under the girl's robe and said to her, "Possible, wake up." He said, "Your brothers are right out there." He said, "Moxoy sends word to you that you must not sit on any part of your robe. Spread it out, but you must put it up over your head and over your root digger, and you must sit there and wait." And so the yellow bird crept back out through the grass and flew back to the brothers and told them, I've told her what you told me to tell him." Now, Moxoy said, "I must try to put this big buffalo bull to sleep." He spread out his robe, and he took his medicine bag, and he used it as a pillow, and he put it he lay down with his head on his Possible Sack with the gopher in him. And he was there only a short time when he arose, and he sent the blackbird down to see if this buffalo bull was asleep. And so, and he was asleep. His nose is on the ground, said the blackbird. And Moxoy said, "I will take her under the ground. I will get her here." And as he said this, he opened up his medicine bag and he pulled this gopher skin out from under it. But as he brought it out of the bag, the closer it got to him, it came alive, and it became a real gopher. And it began to move its paws, and he placed it on the ground. And the moment he placed it on the ground, this gopher began to dig with his paws. And he made a big hole, and he kept digging. And so Moxoy went in after him, and they they crawled underground. And we already knew said that Moxoy said, I will crawl under the ground to get you. And so he talked to her. He got to where she was sitting against the her root digger. And he said, you must shut your eyes, to his sister. He said, don't open them. He said, I'm going to grab your arm. And when he did, he pulled her under the ground and he left her robe hanging over the root digger. And they went back the way they had come and soon got back to where the 6 brothers were standing, where Moxois had gone into the earth. And when they reappeared there, Possible Sack opened her eyes and began to cry and said, brothers, she said, you had better save yourselves. He is great. He will kill us all. And Moxoy said to her, do not cry. Don't be afraid. I shall kill him. And to the others, she said, now go on home. I will stay here, and I'm not afraid of that bull. He can look at me. Remember, he could kill by a glance of his eyes. He said, he cannot kill me. I will wait here. And so the brothers and their sister Possible Sack went running back to their camp. And finally, the buffalo all woke up, and they went to wake up the buffalo bull, and he was still asleep. And he began to paw the dirt. He pawed the dirt and he raised his blob of dust. He said pretty soon he went up to that robe and he touched it with his nose, thinking that the girl was there. And when he touched it, he pushed it over and he found that she was gone. And so he became so angry. And he hooked the robe and he threw it in the air and kept hooking it until it was torn into small pieces. And so he smelled where the hole was and he followed it underground by smelling it. A very good sense of smell. And so he went to the river and he followed the smell of the burrow that the little gopher had made in the water. And so he followed that. He was able to follow the 6 brothers and the sister. And by that time, they had reached their home with the corrals around them. And they kept watch. And finally, they saw this huge cloud of dust coming, and they knew that the buffalo were coming. And at the head of them was this one, this 2-teeth buffalo. And so they got to the top of the hill and they stopped, and an old buffalo cow came down the hill and said to the girl, come back with me, Possible Sack. The double-teeth buffalo wants you. If you do not come back with me, he will come after you himself. And Moxoy sensed her. He said, go back and tell him to come. I am angry with him already because he took my sister away when I was not at home. So the old cow started back and Moxoy shot her. After she had gone only a few steps, she fell dead. An old bull came after her, gave her the same warning, but this time said, daughter-in-law, he said, come with me. His stolen and himself will come if I do not bring you back. And Moxoy replied, let him come. And when the old bull started back, Moxoy shot him too. And he dropped dead just a little bit further than the old cow had. And a third one came, made fearful noises, and was told to go back. No, I'm not letting my sister go back. And Moxoy shot him too. And so the 4th one got close enough to the big bull to give him a message to come on. I'm already angry with you. You've already stolen my sister. He was able to deliver the message before he too fell over dead. Well, this one, and it was this gigantic body, and angry because Moxois had stolen his sister back, began to paw the ground, and he just made fearful noises, and he just made the dust fly, and the girl was crying. She said, "Let me go. It may save you. Let me go." And so Moxois said to her, "Do not cry. Nivel chai. What are you afraid of? Do not fear him. I will kill him," says this little boy. And so when he heard this, the bulls dashed at the outer corral made by the older brothers. They knocked the outer corral down. They knocked the next one to it down. They knocked the third. They knocked the third one down. They knocked the fourth one down. And finally, they reached the point where Moxois had dropped the sand from the anthills all around. And now each of those grains of dirt from the anthills became great rocks, huge boulders, all huge rocks. And so each time when they broke down the corral, the buffalo bull would shout, "Come out, come out." And the girl would say to her brothers, "Let me go. He will kill us all." And the buffalo charged this rock corral that Moxois had made with sand from an anthill. And the big bull, threw himself against that rock of boulders. And he said he almost got in that time. He was so powerful. Said he will be inside soon. And the girl kept saying, "Let me go out to him or he will kill you all." And Moxois said, "No, stay here, wait." And he took his arrow that was made from the large willow and he shot it in the air as high as he could. And where it went, there stood a willow tree. And so then Moxois told him, "Climb up there." And so this buffalo bull hit that willow tree and took some of the the bottom of the tree out, and it flew to another tree. And so Moxois said, as they climbed the tree, well, that piece that the bull had dropped off flew back to where it had been knocked from the willow tree. And so the tree was normal again. And so this buffalo bull charged a second time. Moxois shot with his bullberry arrow that time. And he shot the bull in the head and he fell dead. And Moxois jumped down from the tree, ran to the bull, jumped on him, stomped on him, stomped some more, so that this Histowanini, this double-teeth buffalo, Moxois broke every bone in his body. It was just shattered. In fact, this whole body was shattered into fine pieces. And so when this buffalo bull fell, all of the other buffalo ran away in every direction. And they just sent cloud dust into the sky. And then all of them, the 6 brothers, a sister, came down from the tree, and Moxois said to them, "Now we must go above." That they did so, and they could see, and you can see them yet. They are the 7 stars. There are really 8, but you can only see 7. The girl is at the head. She's the shiniest, most beautiful of all of them. And Moxois is the little one off to the side. And you can see them at night in the stars of the Big Dipper. So that is a story, a possible son and her 7 brothers and her brave little brother Moxois.
Thank you so much for the story, Henrietta.
I took a long time. I had to have a long story to fill up your time. Now I've really filled it up. I apologize, but I can stay on and take some questions if there are any. Now, at least you have the Cheyenne version of how the Big Dipper came into existence. And you can still see them. They're up there for all of us, the whole world to see. This brave little boy who was very brave and had many talents. So even our younger brothers or sisters, our youngest brothers and sisters, are very talented, very brave, very strong, and can do many kind of impossible things.
Yes. Well, does anyone have any questions? We have not seen any questions in the chat yet.
And we tell these stories supposedly at night, but I made sure that we were blessed so that I could tell the story. My late uncle always told me, you're in the field of education, you teach, and your classes cannot be held at night. And he said, so you can go ahead and tell them. So I was given special dispensation to be able to tell some of our stories at night. There are some I probably would never tell in the daytime, but this one I could, because it is a story of at least one of how our world came into existence with a very human touch to it. So the stars, at least the stars of the Big Dipper, are our relatives. We're related to them.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, if anyone has any questions, you are just welcome to unmute yourself and
I don't have any questions, but I just want to say thank you very much, Henrietta, for telling that beautiful story, for being here with us today.
Well, thank you, Tim. Val. Okay, she's the eagle. Okay, thank you for being such a wonderful listener, Val. And it was my honor to be here with all of you today.
This is Val. I'm not sure who that was that shared before.
Must have been Taylor then.
Taylor.
Was it Taylor?
Okay.
Okay.
Yep, it was me.
Yes, thank you, Taylor, and thank you so much, Henrietta. I did put in the chat that it's just beautiful that the stars are our relatives, and I love that. That's just beautiful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. In fact, everything in this world is a relative to us. Everything and everybody.